I remember the way the morning light crept across our bedroom wall. It hit the dresser first, then the mirror, casting a sliver of gold across Mia's half-packed suitcase. She was humming, something jazzy and upbeat, the kind of song she always played when she was pretending not to be tired. I watched her fold the same blue blouse she always forgot to iron, smoothing it out like she really thought this time would be different. "You're packing like you're leaving for a month," I said, sipping my coffee and leaning against the doorframe. She glanced over her shoulder and grinned. "It's just a week, Evan. But you know how I am. I like options." "Right," I said. "Options and hotel coffee. God forbid you survive without bitter sludge in a paper cup." Mia laughed, and that sound, it still got me. Even after 12 years of marriage, her laughter had a way of landing right in the center of my chest. She tossed a rolled-up pair of socks at me. I let it bounce off my stomach. We were fine. Not perfect. Not broken. Just fine. The kind of marriage that floats somewhere between love and autopilot. You stop noticing the slow drift until the shore is too far behind you to swim back. I walked over, helped her zip the suitcase. She paused when I reached for it. Let her hand rest on mine a second too long. "You good?" she asked softly. "Yeah," I nodded. "You?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes scanned my face like she was searching for something. Then she smiled again, quick and practiced. "Of course. Just tired. Long week." I leaned in to kiss her, and she kissed me back. Familiar. Warm. But something in it felt different. Not wrong. Just distant. I told myself it was the stress. Her job had been eating her alive lately, deadlines stacking like dominoes. She turned, grabbing her carry-on, and I watched her from behind. Her blouse clung to her in that way cotton does, clinging to the gentle slope of her waist, hugging the roundness of her hips. There was always a quiet magnetism to Mia, something that lived in the small of her back or the way her hair spilled over one shoulder. I used to crave that. Sometimes I still did. Other times, I only remembered craving it. There's a difference, I think. She was halfway down the stairs when she called. "Did you feed Scout?" "Twice. He guilt-tripped me into extra kibble." Her voice echoed back. "Sucker." I smiled. For a few moments, it really was just another day. But what I never told anyone, what I never even let myself think too long about, was the secret that lived beneath all of this. Before Mia, there was Nora, her twin. I met Nora first. We were quiet, simple, a comfort I didn't know I needed when I was 23 and fresh out of architecture school. She'd sketch while I worked on blueprints, and we'd talk about nothing for hours. Long walks, coffee in bookstores, the kind of love that felt like breathing. And then Mia happened. She entered like a gust of wind, laughing too loud, eyes like firelight, impossible to ignore. She was visiting Nora that weekend. I remember how she looked at me across the kitchen, like she knew something I didn't. That weekend became a week. That week became 100 excuses. And I, fucking coward that I was, followed the storm. Nora never yelled, never cried, just disappeared. That history, those sins, got buried beneath years of shared mortgage payments and anniversary dinners. Mia and I didn't talk about it. We pretended we hadn't started in ashes. She kissed me again at the door that morning. "I'll text you when I land," she said, brushing lint from my collar. "I'll be here," I said. And then she was gone. I stood at the doorway a little too long after the car pulled away, listening to the silence that came after the sound of tires faded. Scout trotted up beside me, tail wagging like nothing had changed. And maybe nothing had. Maybe that was the problem. I went about the rest of the day like I always did. Work emails. A late lunch at the same deli. Laundry. I even rewatched that ridiculous sci-fi show she hated. Out of spite or nostalgia, I couldn't tell. That night, I lay in our bed alone. The side where she slept felt cold already. I stared at the ceiling, wondering why I couldn't shake this strange pull in my gut. Mia was always fine on business trips. We did this dance a dozen times a year. There was no reason to feel off. Except, something lingered. A scent that wasn't hers. A pause too long between "I love you" and the kiss. A softness in her eyes that wasn't for me. I told myself I was overthinking. I didn't know yet that while I stood there watching her go, she had already reopened a door I thought we'd both sealed shut. I didn't know yet that Nora had come back into her life. I didn't know that the woman who kissed me goodbye that morning wasn't planning on returning to the same man. I didn't know, but I would. And the knowing would wreck everything. By the third day, the silence in the house had begun to hum. I don't mean literal silence. There was always some sound. The soft whir of the fridge, Scout's nails tapping on the hardwood, the creak of the back doors settling in its frame. But underneath that, there was something else. A quiet that pressed in from the walls. A stillness that didn't feel natural. Mia's texts came in at their usual intervals. Predictable. Polished. Long day, big pitch tomorrow. Love you. Hotel coffee is as bad as ever, lol. Miss you. Heading to bed early, brain is fried. XO. Nothing about them was strange, exactly. But they felt templated. Like she was copying herself from the last trip. Saying all the right things without saying anything at all. Still, I didn't let it sink claws in me. I chalked it up to stress. Mia had been working insane hours prepping for this pitch for months. She'd always been good at compartmentalizing, shoving feelings aside, slapping a smile on, and getting shit done. That was part of what drew me to her in the first place. She had gravity, direction, purpose, and for a long time, I mistook that for love. It was a Thursday when I found the note. Not one of those dramatic, handwritten letters or lipstick on the mirror kinds of things. No, just a folded post-it under the flower pot by the front door. I was watering the herbs Mia liked to keep alive just enough to brag about them at dinner parties. Basil. Mint. Thyme, I think. When I lifted the pot, something yellow and faded caught my eye. It was damp on the corners, edges curled inward. I opened it and read the words in her handwriting. Looped, confident, unmistakably hers. Key's still here if you drop by. M. That was it. No name. No greeting. Just if you drop by. I stared at it longer than I should have, like it might shift under my gaze and make more sense. My first thought was that it was old. Maybe from before one of her friends came to visit. Her college roommate used to crash here sometimes on her way through town. Maybe Mia had left it then. But the date on the newspaper beneath the pot said 2 days ago. Tuesday. That meant the note was new. And that meant someone had been invited. I turned it over in my hand, scanning for more. A second note. A name. A clue. Nothing. I didn't tell myself I was being paranoid. I've known paranoia. That's not what this was. This was instinct. A quiet alarm ringing somewhere in the back of my mind. An instinct had saved my ass more times than I could count. On job sites, in traffic, even once when I nearly signed a contract that would have bankrupted our firm. I set the note aside and finished watering the herbs, but my pulse had already shifted. A gear had clicked into place that I couldn't unclick. That night, I lay awake again. I thought about the first time I met Nora. It was raining. That soft, misty kind of rain that doesn't make a sound but soaks you all the same. She was reading in the campus cafe, sleeves pulled over her wrists, hair falling forward as she dog-eared the page. I ordered a coffee, took the seat next to hers, and she didn't look up for a solid 5 minutes. When she finally did, she said, "You're sitting in someone else's seat." Whose? Mine. When I leave, someone else takes it. When they leave, someone else takes it. That's how it works. Nobody really keeps anything here. It stuck with me, that line. I didn't know then how much truth lived in it. The thought of Nora made something tighten in my chest. I hadn't said her name out loud in years. Even Mia avoided it. We didn't pretend she never existed. We just airbrushed her out of the timeline. We told people we met at a party, not that I was dating her sister when it happened. We celebrated our anniversary without ever acknowledging that it marked the beginning of someone else's heartbreak. I stared at my ceiling and thought about the note. He's still here. I don't know what compelled me to check the home security logs the next morning. Maybe I just wanted to prove myself wrong. Maybe I needed to see nothing on the screen to silence the unease. But what I saw made my hands go cold. Tuesday night. 10:12 p.m. The front door opened. No alarm. No forced entry. Just opened. Exactly 2 minutes later, it closed again. Mia had already been gone. I was asleep by then. Scout never barked. Someone had used the key. I tried to shake it. Told myself it could have been the cleaning lady. We'd given her a spare months ago. But she always texted. Always came midday. Never at night. I didn't bring it up to Mia. I could have. Should have. But what was I going to say? Hey, did you leave a cryptic note under a pot for someone to sneak into our house while you're away? She texted me that afternoon like nothing had happened. Flight delayed. Might get back Saturday instead of Friday. Love you. I stared at that message for a long time, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed, "Who's the key for?" and stared at it until the bubble blinked out. Then I deleted it. Coward. That night, I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for her return. I drank 2 glasses, then 3. Sat out on the back porch watching the wind stir the trees. Scout curled at my feet, content with my quiet company. I should have felt peaceful, but that silence was back. That same hum. The kind that says something is already moving beneath the surface. I didn't know, not yet, what door she had opened. Not physically, emotionally, historically. What I didn't know then was that Nora had reached out. That after all these years, all that time, they had finally spoken again. I didn't know that Mia, always believing in second chances, always trying to prove she wasn't the villain, had answered. And when she did, she didn't just answer. She invited her in. The front door opened just after midnight. I was half asleep on the couch, still in jeans, the TV muttering some forgettable late-night drama I hadn't been watching. Scout lifted his head, ears perked, tail thumping once. I sat up, disoriented, heart skipping in that stupid way it does when your brain hasn't caught up to your body. Keys clinked. A familiar voice called into the dark. Ev, you up? I blinked twice. Mia? And there she was, framed in the doorway, suitcase in one hand, hair windblown, cheeks pink from the cold. She looked like something out of a memory, the way she used to look when we were younger, before life hardened the edges. She smiled at me like I was the one surprise she wanted. Back already? I asked, standing slowly, disbelieving. Flight got moved up, she said, stepping inside. Didn't want to wake you, but I missed you. I walked over and hugged her, and she let the suitcase drop, arms folding around me with a warmth I hadn't felt in weeks. Her body molded into mine like she'd never left. I breathed in the scent of her citrus shampoo, the faintest trace of her perfume, something that made my stomach twist in that old, familiar way. You smell like hotel soap, I muttered into her hair. You say that like it's a bad thing. We both laughed, but mine was too thin. I couldn't stop thinking about the note. The security log. The door opening when no one should have had reason to. But she was here. And she looked, God, she looked happy. That shook me more than anything. Mia rarely returned from business trips smiling. Usually she was exhausted, irritated, venting about airport delays and incompetent coworkers. But tonight, she looked lighter, younger, like she'd shed something along the way. She pulled back and touched my face. Did you eat? I nodded. Kind of. She tilted her head. Liar. Wanting to make something? Or just heat up whatever that is? Her eyes drifted to the cold takeout box on the coffee table. I'll survive. She grinned and grabbed her suitcase again. I'm getting in the shower. Come up in 10. It wasn't a question, just an invitation. By the time I climbed the stairs, the water had stopped running. The door was open a crack, steam curling out like breath. She was brushing her hair in the vanity mirror, wrapped in the white towel she always stole from hotels. Her skin glistened, and maybe it was the wine still in my system, or maybe just the disorienting beauty of that moment, but I felt it again. The pull, that old gravity. She saw me in the mirror and smiled. What? I stepped inside and said nothing, just walked over and took the brush from her hand. She let me. I dragged the bristles gently through her damp hair, watching her eyes close with each stroke. This used to be a thing between us. On Sunday mornings, in the early years, she'd sit between my legs and let me brush her hair while we listened to records and drank bad coffee. It was simple, intimate. We'd stopped somewhere along the way, without noticing. Tonight, it came back like muscle memory. After a minute, she stood and turned to face me. The towel dropped. She didn't flinch. Neither did I. I kissed her. It wasn't wild or rough or desperate. It was slow, deep, the kind of kiss that tries to memorize. Her hands found my shirt, tugged it up, then slid across my skin like she was trying to remind herself of the terrain. And then we were on the bed. No words. No negotiation. Just the unspoken agreement of old lovers remembering the map of each other. We made love. It wasn't perfect. There were silences in the rhythm. Places where our bodies hesitated, unsure. But there was tenderness too. A sweetness I hadn't felt in a long time. She touched my face while I moved inside her, her eyes locked to mine. I whispered that I'd missed her. She said the same, and I believed her. For a while. Afterward, she curled against me, fingers tracing lazy shapes on my chest. I didn't think I'd sleep well, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But this feels like home again. I didn't know what to say to that. So I kissed the top of her head and pulled her closer. Somewhere between 2 and 3 a. I drifted off. And when I woke up, I caught myself watching her. The way the sunlight spilled across her bare shoulder. The slow rise and fall of her breath. She looked peaceful, content. Her lips slightly parted, lashes twitching as she dreamed. It should have brought comfort. But I kept thinking about how her hands had felt different last night. Not bad. Not wrong. Just not quite the same. The way she kissed my neck, too fast. The way she moaned, slightly delayed, like she was waiting to remember how. It could have been nothing. But my brain wouldn't let it go. I closed my eyes and tried to shake it off. She was back. That was what mattered, right? When she finally woke up, we stayed in bed longer than usual. Talking, laughing. She asked about Scout, about work, about the neighbor's new fence. She seemed curious in a way she hadn't in years. Attentive, engaged. And I was soaking it in, letting myself believe we were back on track. I didn't know yet that this woman lying beside me wasn't the only version of Mia I had slept with that week. I didn't know that love could be rewritten with such precision, that someone could wear another person's skin and almost pull it off. I just thought, maybe we're healing. And if her touch felt somehow new. I only thought, maybe love can still surprise me after all these years. I woke to sunlight pressing through the bedroom blinds, sharp and clean. Mia was still beside me, turned toward the window, one arm curved beneath her head like she was bracing herself against the world even in sleep. I studied her face, half buried in the pillow. How peaceful it looked, how untouched by the weight that lived in my chest. She stirred when I got up, her eyes cracking open, lashes fluttering like a reluctant curtain call. "Morning," she mumbled, voice gravelly. I smiled. "You beat your alarm." She stretched, joints popping, towel from the night before still draped across the end of the bed. "God, I slept hard. You make a good mattress, Carter." That name, Carter, the way she said it. It was a callback to our college days, a teasing nickname she hadn't used in years. "You haven't called me that in a while," I said, sitting on the edge of the bed, pulling on a t-shirt. She shrugged, eyes closing again. "Guess I'm feeling nostalgic." That word, nostalgic, stuck with me all morning. She stayed home that day. Said she wanted to decompress before diving back into the flood of Monday meetings and emails. I worked from the dining room table, catching up on design notes, trying to keep my head in CAD renderings while she moved through the house with a sort of restless grace. She cleaned the windows, dusted the bookshelves, rearranged the mugs in the kitchen cabinet by color. Around noon, I heard the soft clink of plates being set on the table. "Lunch is ready," she said, and when I looked up, there was grilled cheese and tomato soup in front of me. I blinked. "You haven't made this in 7 years," she said, grinning. Yeah, I remembered. It was the kind of lunch we used to make when money was tight and everything we owned still had IKEA tags. I looked down at the sandwich, suddenly flooded by an image of us eating on the floor of our first apartment, knees touching, Nora's framed sketch on the wall behind us. That sketch. God. "Hey," Mia said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Do you ever think about how we met?" Her voice was light, but there was something careful beneath it. I looked at her. "Sometimes." "Do you remember that cafe?" she asked, stirring her soup. "The one off Main Street, with the terrible scones?" I nodded. Nora used to study there. She didn't flinch at the name. Didn't look away. "Yeah," she said quietly. She really loved that place. I wasn't sure where this was going, but something in my chest shifted. "She used to sit in the corner table," Mia continued. Earbuds in, sketching whatever she saw. I remember the first time I went with her. I told her the coffee tasted like mud. She said mud had more personality. I laughed, even though I felt a cold thread inching through me. That sounds like her. Mia looked at me then. Really looked. "Did you love her?" The question landed like a dropped glass. Soft at first, but you knew the shatter was coming. I hesitated. "Yeah," I said finally. "I did." Mia didn't blink. "Before me." I nodded. "Before you." She picked at her crust. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't shown up that weekend?" "Yes," I said, "but I don't let myself go there often." She smiled, small and sad. "Me neither." Silence stretched between us. The sound of the clock ticking in the kitchen suddenly felt too loud. I wanted to ask why she was bringing this up now. Why she was digging into something we'd both carefully buried for over a decade. But I couldn't bring myself to ask. Instead, I said, "You and Nora, you ever talk about that time?" She was quiet a moment too long. "No," she said, too soft. Not really. Later that afternoon, I walked into the bedroom and noticed something strange. A photo frame on her side of the dresser had been flipped forward, not knocked over, intentionally angled down. It was the picture of us from our 5th anniversary trip to Bar Harbor. The one where I was sunburned and she was holding a lobster claw up like a trophy. I tilted it upright again, but my fingers paused as they left the frame. Next to it was a thin stack of papers. A sketch. Black ink. Familiar lines. It was Nora's work. I'd seen her hands make strokes like these. The shape of the trees, the cross-hatching, her signature style. It was the cafe. That same view from her favorite corner table. But it was newer, recent, and beneath it, another one. Of me. Not smiling. Just existing. Brows furrowed, shoulders tense, head tilted like I was listening to something only I could hear. Mia? I called. She didn't answer. I heard the back door close and saw her in the yard, on her phone, pacing slowly, sunlight carving gold across her hair. I set the sketches back down. Heart tight. Thoughts spiraling. She had spoken to Nora. There was no other explanation. And she hadn't told me. That night, we lay in bed again. Her body warm beside me, her breathing slow and even. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how she'd made grilled cheese. How she used my old nickname. How she asked about Nora with a strange kind of hunger in her eyes. Like she was trying to feel something specific and couldn't quite reach it. Like she wasn't looking at me, but through me. And maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just memory. A shared past rising to the surface. But somewhere deep inside, I felt the shift. Like a crack in an old foundation. When you don't notice until the house groans. I turned on my side, watching her sleep. And I wondered, what exactly had she and her sister talked about? What else had been said in silence? And why did it feel like we weren't the only people in this bed? The week that followed was a dream. One of those too bright ones, where everything is just slightly off, but you don't realize it until you wake up. Mia was electric. She sang while doing laundry. She cooked dinner with real ingredients, not just defrosted Trader Joe's stir-fry. She even dragged me out to walk Scout before sunset, claiming the air felt too good to waste. She kissed me in the hallway for no reason, pulling me close like we were still in our 20s. She wore that old chambray shirt I loved, the one with the missing button and frayed cuff. And her hair, she let it down more. Always a little messy, always falling in her face, like she wanted to be seen again but didn't quite know how. I told myself the trip had changed her. That maybe, somewhere between the business dinners and late-night hotel solitude, she'd remembered who we used to be. Maybe absence really did soften sharp edges. Maybe she missed me, truly missed me. But beneath all that brightness, something about her light felt borrowed. She called me Ev again. It had been years since she used that name. Everyone else called me Evan, my co-workers, her friends, even my own mother. But Mia had once called me Ev like it was a secret between us, a shortcut to something tender. And now it was back, just like that. Ev, can you open this jar? Ev, what do you think about repainting the hallway? Ev, remember that little dive bar we used to go to? It was as if she was pulling memories from the attic and dusting them off one by one, showing me we still had a whole scrapbook to flip through. And I wanted to believe it. I wanted so badly to believe that whatever shadows had been lingering before, whatever silences and disconnects and routines, we had broken through it. That we had emerged on the other side. But I was starting to notice the details. Like how she never asked about my week. Not really. She asked what I did, sure. But not how I felt. Her curiosity skimmed across the surface like a stone that never quite sank. Or how she touched me more now, but it was always strategic. Hand on my thigh at dinner, kiss on my neck before bed. Affection, yes, but measured, almost rehearsed. And her sex drive, don't get me wrong, I wasn't complaining, but it was sudden. Overnight, she went from distant pecks and half-hearted makeouts to full-bodied passion. Twice in the kitchen, once on the stairs. She whispered things in my ear that felt lifted from old scripts. Things she hadn't said since our honeymoon phase. And part of me, some dumb, thirsty part, just let myself melt into it. Because God, it felt good to be wanted again. To be needed. But late at night, after she fell asleep curled against my chest, I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder what we were rebuilding. And whether it was built on real forgiveness, or just an illusion we'd both agreed to wear like a costume. That Friday, we had dinner on the back patio. She'd lit candles, poured wine, made lemon pasta from scratch. I think we should go away, she said suddenly, twirling her fork. Just the two of us. Maybe somewhere coastal. Or somewhere with trees. Mountains? I blinked. A trip? Yeah. She looked up, eyes glowing. No phones. No schedules. Just you and me. Like we used to. My heart twisted. It sounded like heaven. And maybe that's why it made me nervous. Where's this coming from? I asked. She smiled, tilting her head. Do I need a reason to want my husband all to myself? No, I said, studying her. It's just this is a big shift. She shrugged, sipping her wine. Isn't that the point? We were stuck, Ev. I don't want to go back to that version of us. I want more. Don't you? I did. Of course I did. But that night, while brushing my teeth, I noticed something. Her necklace, the little gold one I bought her on our 10th anniversary, was hanging on the bathroom hook. She never took it off, not even in the shower. I'd seen her wear it to the gym, to bed, to client dinners. I picked it up, fingers running along the chain. And that's when I realized what was bothering me. Mia wasn't a reinventor. She didn't do spontaneous. She didn't shift overnight. Her changes were gradual, subtle, predictable. But this version of her, singing, cooking, passionate, nostalgic, felt like a performance. A damn good one, but still a performance. She was leaning into old habits like a character in a play. And then it hit me. What if she wasn't trying to be herself again? What if she was trying to be someone else entirely? I stared at the necklace, at the way the chain had knotted slightly, like it had been ripped off in a hurry. Not unhooked. Pulled. That night, in bed, she reached for me again. Pulled me in close. Kissed me hard. I kissed her back, but my mind was elsewhere. Because her perfume was different. She wore the same two brands for years. Fresh, floral, never heavy. But this was warmer. Muskier. A deeper base. It clung to her skin in a way I hadn't felt before. And I remembered Nora's perfume. That soft amber scent she wore that left traces on my jackets for days after we broke up. The one I could still summon if I let myself. This wasn't the same. But it was close. Too close. Afterward, I lay awake, Mia asleep beside me, her body curled against mine. And I realized something terrifying. I didn't know who I'd made love to that night. I mean, yes, it was Mia's body. But something about the rhythm, the whispers, the way her fingers tangled in my hair. It all felt just a beat too familiar. Familiar in a way that didn't belong to my wife. Familiar in a way I hadn't felt since Nora. And I started to wonder, what if, somehow impossibly, I already had? It was a Sunday morning when my world split in two. The kind of morning that didn't hint at disaster. The sun was out, the house smelled like toast and dog fur, and the music Mia had put on was some jazzy playlist she'd rediscovered from a decade-old Spotify account. She danced in the kitchen barefoot, wearing one of my old button-downs and nothing else. She smiled when I walked in. Morning, sleepy. I kissed her cheek, let my hand rest on the small of her back a beat too long. I was still trying to believe this version of her was real. I hadn't mentioned the necklace, or the sketches, or the perfume. I hadn't said a word about how her voice sometimes trembled at the end of sentences like she wasn't sure what came next. Because part of me, some naive, traitorous part, wanted this to be true. Wanted her to really want me again. Wanted to forget what I was starting to suspect. I was making coffee when the front door opened. Just like that, no knock. No warning. The sound of keys. Then footsteps. Then, Evan, a voice called. Familiar. Confident. Sharp with travel fatigue. I turned toward the entryway. My hands froze mid-pour. Mia was standing there. Another Mia. Same suitcase she'd left with. Same windblown hair. Same weary smile. I stared. My brain refused to process the image. Then the woman in the kitchen stepped behind me, her hands still sticky with honey, hair tied up messily, and froze. The air split. Two versions of her. One in the doorway. One at my back. Identical. Almost. But only one was my wife. I looked at the Mia in the kitchen, and she looked back at me, pale now, lips parted. The other Mia stepped forward slowly, eyes locked on her twin. What the hell is this? Shit, the kitchen Mia whispered. Her voice cracked. Mia, I said, but I didn't know which one I was talking to. You. The one by the door breathed. You fucking came here. The woman beside me stepped back, swallowing hard. I didn't mean. You didn't mean to what, Nora? My wife spat, stepping forward now, shoulders tight with rage. Didn't mean to sneak into my house. Didn't mean to lie to my husband. Or did you not mean to fuck him while pretending to be me? My breath punched out of my chest like I'd been kicked. Silence. Heavy. Humiliating. My pulse thundered in my ears. Nora, I repeated. She didn't answer. Just stood there, hands shaking, eyes glassy. I looked at her, really looked, and all the signs I'd ignored collapsed into clarity. The perfume. The brush strokes. The way she kissed me like she was remembering something. Not living it. You're not, I swallowed. You're not Mia. She blinked. And nodded. Just once. Jesus Christ, I whispered. The woman at the door stepped forward, rage now tempered by heartbreak. You left a key, didn't you? Nora nodded again. I thought you said you wanted to talk, Mia said. That you wanted to reconnect. That you wanted peace. I did, Nora cried. I do. But what? Mia snapped. So you came here while I was gone? Slept in my bed? Wore my clothes? Touched my husband? Pretended to be me? I didn't mean to, Nora whispered. Not at first. Oh, that makes it better. Nora's eyes flicked to mine. Pleading. Evan, Don't, I said. My voice was low. Raw. Don't say my name like you still know me. Please, she said, stepping forward. You loved me once. And you burned that, Mia cut in. Years ago. We were kids. I made a mistake, yeah. I took something from you. But this? She pointed around the room, at the kitchen, at me. This is fucking nuclear. I didn't plan it, Nora said, voice trembling. I just wanted to see what it would have been like, if I hadn't lost you both. Mia stared at her, expression unreadable. Then she laughed. Not joy, not amusement. It was the laugh of a woman 2 seconds from breaking something. Do you even hear yourself? She said. You seduced my husband by pretending to be me. That's not curiosity. That's psychotic. It wasn't seduction, Nora said. It was memory. Familiar. Don't you dare. Mia snapped, cutting her off. Don't you dare try to pull him into this like he knew. He didn't know. And that might have been the cruelest part. Because deep down, some part of me had known. I remembered Nora's touch. Her pace. The way she looked at me like she wanted to draw my soul onto paper. I should have felt the difference. I hadn't. And that haunted me. I stared at Nora. How long? I asked. Her lip trembled. 2 nights. I closed my eyes. Mia's voice cracked behind me. You let her touch you. You touched her back. I opened my eyes. I thought it was you. But part of you knew it wasn't, she said. Didn't it? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know what was worse. That I hadn't noticed the switch. Or that I had. And let it happen anyway. Nora took a step back. Tears now. I never stopped loving you, she said, barely a whisper. I stopped loving you the day you disappeared without a word, I said. The words cut her. I saw it in her face. And I hated how part of me still wanted to soften them. Mia turned away. Get out, she said to her sister. Nora didn't move. Now, Nora. She walked slowly to the door, suitcase in hand. But before she stepped out, she turned back to me. I just wanted you to remember, she said. Then she was gone. And the house was still again. Except it wasn't. Because everything had changed. The door clicked shut behind Nora like a trigger being pulled. And then everything exploded. What the fuck just happened? Mia said, her voice shrill with disbelief. Not a question. More like the start of a scream she hadn't figured out how to let loose yet. She stood frozen by the couch, arms wrapped tight around her ribs like she had to hold herself together with force. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because I didn't have a goddamn clue how to explain how I let another woman, her sister, into our bed. I thought she was you, I said finally. It sounded pathetic. Useless. Mia snapped her head toward me. Eyes shining, not with tears but fire. Don't start with that. Don't you dare tell me you couldn't tell the difference between me and her. She looked like you. Smelled like you. She knew things, I said, grasping for something solid. She wore your shirt. Called me Ev. She touched me like she remembered. Mia spat. Like she'd done it before. That shut me up. Jesus, Evan, she said, stepping toward me, voice dropping into something lower, scarier. You couldn't tell the difference? You slept with her. I flinched at that. Not because it wasn't true, but because hearing it, saying it, made it real in a way it hadn't been until now. I thought it was you, I said again, quieter. And you didn't question it? Not once. Her voice cracked now. Not even when she kissed differently, touched differently, moaned differently. My voice died. Because she was right. Somewhere deep down, I'd felt it. That flicker of off. The way her rhythm had changed. The curve of her smile, just slightly wrong. I'd ignored it. Explained it away. Wanted so badly for us to be okay that I let myself believe the lie. You let her pretend to be me, she said, backing away now, like I was something she couldn't stand to look at. You didn't just fuck her. You let her be me. I sat down, hard, on the edge of the armchair. My chest felt like it was wrapped in barbed wire. I didn't know. I swear to God. She laughed bitterly. You didn't ask. That's not the same. The room spun. The walls felt smaller than they had an hour ago. Mia turned toward the kitchen, pacing like a caged animal. Then she slammed both hands down on the counter with a loud crack. Scout barked from upstairs. Neither of us moved. Why the hell didn't you tell me she reached out? I said, finally. Mia turned slowly, like it physically hurt. Because I didn't think she would do this. I thought she wanted to make peace. I hoped, we could finally put the past behind us. You left her a key, I said, the accusation unintended but sharp. I leave keys for dog walkers and house cleaners too, she shot back. I didn't expect her to break into our life. We stared at each other, this ugly thing between us now, too massive to step around. And then something in her broke. She sank to the floor, back against the cabinet, legs folded awkwardly, hands shaking. I stole you from her, she whispered. I froze. She didn't look at me. Back then, I saw how she looked at you. How you looked at her. I knew she'd never fight for you. But I wanted you. I always wanted everything she had. The quiet boys. The gentle ones. Mia, I didn't even like you at first, she said. But I liked that she loved you. That she trusted you. And when you started looking at me like I was the center of the room, I couldn't stop. You think I was a prize? She looked up now. I think we've both treated you like one. There was silence after that. The kind that settles into your lungs and makes it hard to breathe. Finally, I sank down next to her, sitting on the cold tile. I loved you, I said. I chose you. But you still remember her, she said. I didn't answer. She didn't need me to. I thought if I invited her back, if I was the bigger person, maybe I could stop being the villain in the story. Maybe she'd forgive me. And instead, I said, she rewrote the story. Mia laughed bitterly. Yeah, she did. We sat like that for a long time. Not touching, not looking at each other. Just two people side by side, staring into the middle of a storm we'd both helped create. She wanted me to feel what it was like, Mia said softly. To be stolen from. To be invisible. To be not enough. She's broken, I said. So am I, Mia replied. I looked at her, and for the first time in years, I didn't see the woman who'd swept me away from my quiet life with Nora. I saw a woman sitting in the wreckage of a war she started a decade ago. And maybe, in some twisted way, Nora had finally won. Or maybe nobody had. Maybe we were just collateral. I stood slowly, my legs stiff. I need air. She didn't stop me. As I stepped outside, the late afternoon light hit me full in the face. Everything looked normal. Birds chirping, cars passing, the world going on like nothing had happened. But inside, everything had changed. I wasn't sure what came next. Only that it would hurt. Nora left that night. She didn't slam the door. She didn't shout anything else. She didn't even look back. She just wheeled her suitcase down the steps like she was leaving a hotel she didn't belong in. Quiet. Hollow. Gone. And after that, silence. The kind of silence that doesn't settle. It stretches. Fills the corners of the house. Drowns you slowly. Mia and I barely spoke. We didn't fight. We didn't cry. We just stopped. We moved around each other like shadows, like awkward roommates pretending not to notice they'd once shared a bed. She worked late. I took calls on the patio. Scout started sleeping in the guest room. Even he seemed to know that something inside these walls had snapped. There were no more morning kisses. No more wine at dinner. No more Ev. Just the scrape of forks on plates. The hum of the dishwasher. The sound of two people trying not to suffocate in the wreckage of what used to be a marriage. 3 days after Nora left, I found one of her sketches in the laundry room, tucked between folded towels like it had tried to hide. It was me again, sitting on the porch, phone in hand, eyes distant. She'd captured my slouch, the tired curve of my back, the quiet on my face. It was too accurate. I almost tore it in half. Instead, I shoved it into the drawer beside the batteries and old keys. I didn't know why. Maybe because some part of me wanted to destroy it later when I could afford the weight of it. Maybe because it felt like the only proof I had that any of this happened. That someone else saw me, even if they did it all wrong. That night, Mia sat beside me on the couch but didn't say anything. She curled her legs up, hugged a throw pillow, stared at the blank TV screen like it owed her answers. I looked at her, tried to recognize the woman I married. She still had the same posture, the same stubborn mouth, the same half-moon scar under her right eyebrow. But something behind her eyes was gone. You said you wanted her to forgive you, I said, finally. Did you mean that? She didn't look at me. Yeah. Forgive you for what? She was quiet for a long time. Then, for stealing you. I swallowed. I chose you. I know, she whispered. But that didn't make it right. We sat in silence again. My chest ached in a way I didn't have words for. I wanted to say something true, something that might connect us again, but everything I thought of sounded like a lie. I finally asked, do you think she came here to hurt you? Mia turned to me then, really turned. Her eyes were dry but distant. I think she came here to see if I could feel what she did. And did you? She hesitated. Not at first. But now, yeah, I do. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. You think this ends us? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, I think we ended a long time ago. We just didn't notice. The words hit me harder than they should have. Because she wasn't saying it with bitterness. Not even with anger. Just fact. Like she was finally reading a label we'd both ignored. I stayed on the couch long after she went upstairs. The next morning, I found her sitting at the dining room table, coffee in one hand, staring at her phone. She looked up, startled, like she'd been somewhere far away. I texted her, she said. I stiffened. Why? I needed to say it, she replied. That I hated what she did. That I loved her once. That she broke something in me. I sat across from her. Did she reply? Mia shook her head. Not yet. Maybe not ever. We sat like that for a while. Two ghosts in our own home. Eventually, she said something that I would carry for weeks after. I thought this marriage could survive anything. But it can't survive not knowing who I am to you anymore. I didn't respond. Because I didn't know either. I didn't know how to define the damage. How to measure the distance between our bodies now. How to erase the image of Nora's fingers brushing my jaw in the dark and realizing, too late, that they were not Mia's. That they had been once. A lifetime ago. And that some part of me had remembered. Had wanted it. That was the real betrayal. Not hers. Mine. Mia didn't ask me to leave. I didn't ask her to stay. We just drifted. That week, I found myself waking at strange hours. Staring at the ceiling. Listening for footsteps that wouldn't come. Sometimes, I checked the front door. I don't know why. To see if the note was still under the pot. To see if Nora might appear again. She never did. I kept thinking of the last thing she said before she left. I just wanted you to remember. And the sick part? I did. I remembered everything. The sound of her laugh when she was drunk. The way she sketched people like she was stealing their soul to keep safe. The first time we had sex in the back of her car, tangled and awkward, both of us grinning like idiots after. I remembered how it felt to be wanted without being pursued. And I hated her for giving that memory back to me. Even worse. I hated myself for not wanting to let it go. It was 2 weeks before Nora came back. I didn't know she was coming. Neither did Mia. We were sitting on opposite sides of the porch, late afternoon sun washing everything in the kind of gold that makes even dead things look beautiful. Mia had her laptop out, pretending to work. I was pretending not to watch her. Then we heard the car. Then the footsteps. And when she appeared at the gate, suitcase in hand again, time folded in on itself. Mia stood first. What the hell are you doing here? Nora didn't flinch. I needed to say it. There's nothing left to say. Nora walked up to the steps, but didn't climb them. She stood on the bottom one, level with the railing, like a guest too polite to barge in, but too defiant to leave. I don't care if you forgive me, she said. But you don't get to erase me. Not again. Mia let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Erase you? You walked out of my life, Nora. You made sure of that when you stopped returning calls. When you blocked my number. When Mom had to tell me third hand that you moved to Portland. You stole the man I loved, Nora shot back. What did you think would happen? That I'd just smile through the wedding? You never told me you loved him. I shouldn't have had to. They were both standing now, squared off like boxers. The air between them pulsed with something electric and bitter. I introduced you, Nora said, eyes narrowed. You sat across from me and watched me fall in love with him. And then he looked at me. Mia snapped. And you hated that. I hated that you let him. Oh, so now it's my fault he wanted me. Nora's voice shook. You always wanted what I had. That's because I had to fight for everything. You got to be the quiet one, the gentle one, the favorite. The invisible one, Nora corrected. The one nobody noticed until you walked away. I stood up then, not sure what I was doing. Maybe trying to stop them. Maybe just trying to survive it. This isn't about me anymore, I said. They both turned toward me. But it was Nora who spoke. It's always been about you. I felt that in my bones. Evan was the first thing I had that felt safe, she said. He saw me. He listened. He didn't need me to be loud or clever or magnetic. He just held space for me. Mia crossed her arms. And you think that meant you owned him? No, Nora said, voice quieter now. But I didn't expect my own sister to rip that away just because she could. I didn't take him to hurt you, Mia replied, a little softer now. You took him to win. That landed. Mia looked away. And then, for the first time in what felt like hours, Nora's voice cracked. I tried to move on. I tried to forget. But you got the life I dreamed of. The husband. The house. The choice. Mia blinked fast. Her arms dropped to her sides. You know what I got? Nora continued. I got to paint people I couldn't touch. I got to be the shadow in every photo. I got to hear secondhand about your anniversaries and your dog and your big new job. You think it was perfect? Mia asked, stunned. You think I never felt guilty? You buried that guilt under sex and vacations. Mia stepped forward now, voice trembling. You think I didn't cry the night before our wedding? That I didn't think of you when I walked down that aisle? You think I didn't look at him sometimes and hate myself for wanting him more than I loved you? They were both crying now. Not loud, just soft, slow tears. Like the kind you don't even realize are falling. I stood between them, the only man in a war I didn't start, but never stopped fueling. Nora looked at me. Did you ever love her more than me? I closed my eyes. Mia's breath caught in her throat. And I said the only thing I could. I thought I did. Silence. Not the kind that drowns. The kind that strips everything away. Mia stepped back. Nora wiped her face. I wanted to hurt you, she said to Mia. I won't lie. I wanted you to know what it felt like to be second. You didn't make me feel second, Mia said, voice hoarse. You made me feel invisible. Nora looked shattered. I wanted to hold something. Someone. But I didn't know who. And I was starting to realize I didn't have the right to either of them anymore. I don't forgive you, Mia whispered. I don't forgive me either, Nora replied. They stood like that for a long moment. Then Nora turned to me. I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. But it was true. I nodded once. And then she was gone. Again. This time, I knew she wouldn't come back. Mia didn't move. Just stared at the space her sister had stood in. She was always better at leaving, she said. I didn't answer. Because I didn't know who was better at staying. I started packing before the sun came up. Not in a fit of anger. Not after a fight. There was no yelling. No slamming doors. No dramatic last straw. Just silence. And silence, I've learned, can be louder than anything. I folded shirts slowly. Put my shaving kit into the canvas bag Mia gave me on our 5th anniversary. Tossed in a photo, one I wasn't in, of Scout running down the beach, sand in his mouth. Left the others. The hardest part was choosing what not to take. I wrote 2 letters. Not long ones. Just enough to say what needed saying without bleeding all over the page. One for Nora. One for Mia. Nora's was simple. You were my first quiet. You made me feel seen in a world that always asked me to be more. I don't hate you. I don't love you like I did. But I understand now how long you carried that grief alone. I hope someday you forgive yourself. Please don't come looking for me. Mia's took longer. I rewrote it 3 times before I finally stopped trying to explain and just told the truth. You weren't wrong. We started breaking a long time ago. We just didn't want to admit it. I don't know if I ever loved you more than Nora. I don't even know if it matters anymore. What I know is that I love the idea of us. The future we promised. The version of me you saw when everything was new. But I don't recognize that man now. And I think that's because he was never really me. I don't hate you. I just can't be yours anymore. I left them both on the kitchen table, under Mia's favorite coffee mug, the chipped one from the street fair in Santa Cruz. The one she always said made her feel imperfect on purpose. When I reached the front door, I hesitated. I expected Mia to stop me. But she didn't. She was already there. Standing in the hallway, barefoot, hair down, robe pulled tight around her. She must have heard me moving. She didn't say anything at first. Just looked at me like she was memorizing the shape I made in the doorway. You're really going? She asked. I nodded. She glanced at the bag in my hand. You packed light. I don't want to take much. Where will you go? I don't know yet. Somewhere quiet. She smiled sadly. You were always chasing quiet. I didn't disagree. She stepped closer, but not too close. Did you ever love me more than her? I took a breath. I thought I did. She blinked, looked away. So it was always a guess. No, I said gently. It was a hope. Silence hung again, heavy and familiar. Then she whispered, part of me wondered if you'd still notice the difference. I looked at her for a long time. I didn't, I said. I didn't try to soften it or take it back, because that was the truth. And even now, even with everything laid bare between us, neither of us moved. Neither of us begged. We just stood there like statues watching our history fossilize. I turned the knob, paused. She spoke again. I used to think you were the thing I won, she said. But maybe we were both just something Nora lost. I didn't respond, because she was right, and because I was done being a trophy in someone else's war. I stepped outside. The air was cool, the sky still that early blue where nothing feels quite real yet. The kind of morning that makes the world feel honest. I didn't look back. I didn't need to, because I already knew what I was leaving behind. I walked to the car, started the engine, and just drove. I didn't know where I was headed, but I knew what I wasn't carrying anymore. Guilt, confusion, half-love. I was done being the center of a story written by two sisters who never stopped competing. Done trying to fix something that started broken. Done pretending that love and peace are the same thing. It had been 6 months since I left. I'd rented a small apartment by the coast, a weather-worn second-story walk-up that smelled like salt and old books. The kind of place where time slows down enough for you to hear yourself think, and then keeps slowing until you're forced to listen. There was a coffee shop beneath the building. I became a regular without meaning to. I started sketching again, poorly, but it passed the time. Sometimes I wrote, mostly fragments of things I didn't know how to finish. Names I wasn't sure I should say out loud. I didn't speak to either of them. No calls. No texts. Sometimes I'd see a woman with red hair in a crowd, and my heart would catch before logic reminded me it wasn't them. Sometimes I'd wake up thinking I heard a laugh through the wall, or the sound of Mia's heels on tile, or Nora humming to herself while she drew. Ghosts. All of them. One night, just after the first rain of winter, I heard a knock on the door. 3 soft raps. Not urgent, but not casual either. I opened it and froze. She stood there, damp from the rain, coat clutched in one hand, a small black gift bag in the other. Her eyes found mine instantly, like she'd never stopped looking. Nora. Or Mia. I didn't know. Her hair was longer, or maybe she'd just stopped tying it up the way Mia used to. Her lipstick was subtle, her perfume familiar, too familiar. A warm, amber scent I couldn't place as one or the other. That was the first alarm bell. But her smile was soft and sad. Hi, she said. I didn't speak. Couldn't. I was in town, she continued. Thought I'd stop by. A pause. I brought something. She held up the bag, almost shy. I took it mechanically. Inside was a wrapped package, tissue paper, black ribbon. I peeled it open without looking at her. It was a sketchbook. My face stared back at me from the first page. Not smiling. Not sad. Just real. Lines of fatigue around the eyes. A furrow in the brow. The way my lips curved slightly downward when I wasn't thinking. It was me. Drawn in the way only someone who saw me could. I looked up. You drew this? She shrugged. You sat still enough. A flicker behind her eyes. My stomach twisted. Nora, I asked, barely above a whisper. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped into the apartment uninvited, walking to the small window where I kept a plant I was trying not to kill. She touched one of the leaves gently, as if trying to decide what to say. Then, does it matter anymore? I stood still. It matters to me, I said. She turned. Same eyes. Same mouth. But the expression, God, the expression was both of them and neither. She smiled, barely. You're still trying to tell us apart? You made it hard. You let it be hard. I didn't argue. She walked toward me again, slower this time. We stood a few feet apart, the sketchbook still warm in my hand. I didn't come here to restart anything, she said. I just wanted to see you. I searched her face for something. Regret. Hope. Maybe even malice. But all I saw was time. Time had softened her. Or maybe just worn her down. What happened to Mia? I asked. Her lips pressed together. She's in therapy. She got the house. She lets the dog sleep in bed now. And you? She hesitated. I'm not drawing people anymore. Just landscapes. Trees don't lie. That landed harder than it should have. I still dream about both of you, I said. Sometimes I forget who I'm with, even in my own memories. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the warmth of her skin beneath the perfume, close enough that her presence bent the air around me. And then she leaned in, not fast, not dramatic, just close enough for her lips to brush mine. A kiss. Soft, uncertain, like she was asking a question she didn't want answered. And I let her. For just a second, I let it happen. Then I pulled back and stared at her. Her eyes searched mine, trying to read the verdict. I whispered again, "Are you Mia?" A long pause. Then, finally, she gave a slow, sad smile and said, "What if I'm both?" She didn't wait for me to respond. She turned, opened the door, and slipped into the night, into the rain-slicked dark where the ocean sounded like breath. I stood there for a long time, sketchbook in hand, heart on fire, mouth still tingling, and I realized something terrifying. It wasn't that I didn't know which sister had just kissed me. It was that part of me didn't want to know. Because whatever war had started between them, whatever lines they'd crossed, whatever truths they'd buried and rewritten, I'd been shaped by both of them, loved by both, broken by both. And now, alone in the quiet, I finally understood. I was never choosing between two women. I was choosing whether I could live with the part of me that had loved them both. And I still wasn't sure.